All right, so today we are going to start on our very first beginner project here. So by now, you should have completed that whole checklist that we started with, the Fusion to Intro checklist, where you did all of the different tools. So now what we're going to do is, rather than practicing one specific tool, we're going to be combining a couple of different tools in order to make a solid object, okay? And that first object we're going to be making is a leather chair, okay? So, again, this is something that I just kind of threw together. As we go, if you want to make different design choices, you are absolutely free to do so. I'm just going to go through the basic process of how we get this three-dimensional model from two-dimensional sketching. And essentially what I do, the process is going to be, I'm going to draw this side profile, this L shape right here. I'm going to extrude it. I'm going to add some fillets to round these edges. I'm going to draw one of these little dimples and give it a fillet, and then I'm going to pattern it a couple times. And then I use the loft tool to create these chair legs here, okay? So I already have this file saved and done, but I'm basically going to repeat it. It's probably not going to look exactly the same because some of this stuff was just freehand. Um, I know a lot of traditional CAD people will yell at you if something doesn't have measurements. And while I agree with that to a certain extent, if you're just kind of making something for fun that's a little artistic, um, you can use reference lines to get a general estimate for what your measurement should be. But you can kind of take some artistic liberties with your dimensioning and measurements. If you're just making something in the computer, if you're not really printing it, if it's not functional, it's not really a big deal. Okay. So I'm going to start with a new design. I'm going to start with a create sketch in the top left. I'm going to pick any plane and I'm just going to draw that side profile that I made. I'm going to start by drawing a skinny rectangle here. I'm going to make it, let's see, 24 inches long by, let's go with 2 inches high because in my last chair, this looked kind of thin. And if you're a big dude like I am, that's probably not going to go well if you actually try to sit in that chair. So let's make it 2 feet by 2 inches. And this is going to serve as our base. Now we're going to make the back of the chair and that I'm going to extrude. So the way I did this before is I'm going to make myself a reference line using the line tool. So in the top right corner of that rectangle, I'm just going to draw a vertical line that's not 234, 24 inches high because the back of the chair I want to be about 2 inches high. You know, I feel like a foot wouldn't provide enough support, and 3 feet is way too much. So I'm gonna go with 24 because that seems good. I don't know why it zooms out like that. My mouse is being weird, but this is 24 inches high. So now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to from the bottom right of this rectangle here, I'm just going to draw a short little line going horizontally out from the bottom right that doesn't really go anywhere. And this is going to serve as what I call like a closing line because I'm going to draw a profile right here. And I just want to make sure that all my gaps are covered. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. So first, I'm going to take my line tool again from the top right of that rectangle. And rather than edit the distance this time, I'm going to edit the angle and I'm going to opt for an 80-degree angle. And then once I type that in, you'll see it'll lock it at 80 degrees because I feel like that's a decent angle. Um, and we can make it as long as we want. So we could also line up with this dot right there. And there we go. So it's at 80 degrees relative to the horizontal, but I also know it's at 24 inches high because we lined it up with this reference line here. And as we progress through the class, reference lines are really, really useful. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is to make this curlicue piece, this little piece at the top, I used spline the last time I did this, but I think I'm going to try a circle this time and see how that looks. I'm gonna just kind of place it kind of right there. Yeah, yeah, that looks good. And then we're gonna take my line tool and from, let's see, right about there. That triangle denotes the midpoint of this extension line that I drew. So we'll go with that and we'll see how that looks. I'm gonna set my angle to be 80 degrees. I'm gonna and then I'm going to adjust my height until I get it inside this circle, okay? The height of this line doesn't really matter that much because as long as it's inside of this circle, that's all that we care about, okay? So I've got the basic outline of my chair here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish my sketch, rotate my camera, and I'm going to press E. You can press E for extrude rather than pressing the button in the top left. You can also press E. And then I'm going to select all those faces that I just drew, and I'm going to extrude it by 24 inches. Okay. I wonder if that would be uncomfortable. We'll make an edit here in a second to kind of make that a little bit better. We can always go back. So if you ever want to, if you extrude something and you want to go back and edit one of your sketches, what you can do is find whatever sketch it's in. So you can either open up the sketch folder on the left hand side of the screen, or you can find the sketch on the browser down here. And if you double click that, it'll take you right into the sketch. So what I'm going to do actually is this looks kind of harsh. So I'm just going to, let's see, what am I going to do? I'm going to take a line. I'm going to use my spline tool, and I'm kind of going to just make like this a little bit softer. And then, so you'll notice that didn't reappear. If I double click my extrusion, this will reappear, and then I can also select that part. So now I've got that cool little thing right there. Okay. All right, so you'll notice we have a lot of really hard edges here. To soften those up, we're going to use the fillet tool right here. Let's select this face right here. Let's do our fillet. Let's try half an inch. See how that looks. I don't think that's enough. What about 3/4? Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. 3/4 fillet looks pretty good. Let's go to the other side. Let's add a fillet to this face. Let's do 0.75. That also looks good. Let's do some more. Let's do the ones running horizontally. And rather than typing, you can also just click and drag this arrow here. I generally like to make my fillets as big as possible, especially like a piece of furniture. I feel like, you want it to have nice soft edges. So that's a 1-inch fillet for all those horizontal pieces. So now we've got nice smooth edges here. Okay. So now to make these little dimples here. You'll notice that furniture, a lot of times, they have like stitching patterns or sometimes they'll have textures in them. So I try to make something like that. I feel like some furniture sometimes has those little dimples on them. So I'm going to create a sketch on the top of the seat right here. And I'm going to draw just a little circle right there. I'm going to make this circle 1.5 inches in diameter. And then I'm going to dimension it from the closest lines of these squares. I'm going to dimension it to be 1.5 inches away in that direction, and 1.5 inches away in this direction. Okay. Now, we're going to pattern this in two different directions. If you really wanted to get crazy with your attention to detail, the proper way to do this would be to measure both this distance and this distance, um, and then do some math to figure out how to most properly fit these circles in here. But I don't really like to do that because this is just like an art piece. It's not mechanical in any way. So if this were like a mechanical piece for stuff that was supposed to fit together, you should absolutely take the diameter of the circle, take the distances away, take these lengths, and do some math to figure out how best you could fit this inside of here. But I'm not really going to do that. So first, I'm just going to make my little dimple here. I'm going to extrude this tiny circle by a really small amount. Let's try 0.1. Yeah. I'm going to extrude this dimple by 0.1 inches. And then I'm going to add a fillet right here on top of this dimple. We'll try 0.05. It doesn't look like enough. Let's try 0.1. Yeah, it seems good enough. So it kind of looks like a Lego brick right there. If you wanted to make it more like an actual sphere, what you would do is you would have to work with work planes, or you would draw a half circle, and then a line, and then revolve that half circle, and you get more of like a dome feature. But I didn't want something that protruded that much, so I'm just kind of going with the cylinder and then fill at the edges here. So I've got my little temple here. Now, if I want to pattern it across this face, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go create pattern, rectangular pattern. Even though it's a circle, we're patterning it in two different directions. So that's going to fall under the rectangular pattern. So we are going to select, make sure we're under features, and we're going to select both the cylinder, and make sure you do the fillet too. If you don't select this fillet, it's going to pattern the cylinder without the fillet, and it will look weird. So in our dialog box, we're going to select our axes. We're going to click two different directions, and we'll click and drag them out. Again, you can see these don't really line up perfectly. Like, this distance is different than this distance, and that's because I didn't really do the math. But if you want to do the math, I would absolutely encourage you to, but I'm not going to make you do that. So I'm just going to change my pattern repetitions here. I'm going to do 10 going in this direction and 5 going in this direction. Again, if you need to do that, just click on these arrows that pop up, or in the dialog box under axis 1 and axis 2, you can change their quantity and distance. Okay, and so I'm happy with that, so I'm going to press enter, and now we've got these dimples in our chair. Okay, so now to make our legs, what we're going to do is we're going to make good use of the mirror tool. So mirror is really good, or actually, no, we're not using mirror. We're going to use pattern. We're going to use pattern, not mirror. Okay, so I'm going to create a sketch on this bottom of the chair here, and I'm going to draw a circle that in one of the corners that is 2 inches in diameter, and then I'm going to dimension it to be 1 point. Oops. I'm going to dimension it to be 1.5 away from one side and 1.5 away from another side. Okay. Don't ask me what those measurements mean. I just made them up on the spot. Okay, so I'm going to finish my sketch, but I'm not going to extrude this because I want to make a leg that's tapered. So if I go to this chair here, you'll see that it starts really thick and then it kind of gets thinner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this 2D sketch right here, and then I'm going to construct an offset plane here. So in the top right of my tools, we're going to click construct an offset plane. I'm going to click on the bottom of the chair, and I'm going to offset it by 24 inches. So now I have a work plane that's 24 inches or 2 feet away from the bottom of my chair. Okay, and that's what I want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new sketch on that work plane that I just made. I'm going to draw a circle on this work plane. I want to line it up with the center of this circle that I just drew on the bottom. Sometimes it won't automatically project. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go create, project/include, project, and you're going to click on that circle and then press OK. So now you'll see this little purple thing in my sketch has lined up with this circle here. We need that to line up our center points. So I'm going to press center circle diameter, center diameter circle. I'm going to line up my center point, and I'm going to make this 1.5 because our projected circle has a diameter of 2. So you can see here's the original circle. This purple line is our projection, and this is the circle that I just made. And then I'm going to finish my sketch. And you'll see that I have this sketch kind of floating out in space. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go create loft, wherever it is, right there. I'm going to loft this circle on the chair to this inside circle I just drew. Now, you don't want to make sure you don't select the outside circle because then you're just going to get a cylinder. Make sure you select this inside smaller circle so you actually get a tapered leg. Okay, so you'll see I've got a taper that's going from thick to thin. So now to put these I'm going to put 4 of them here. So rather than doing this 4 times with measurements for each, I can save myself a little bit of trouble by going to create, pattern, rectangular pattern. I'm going to click on this chair leg. My axes are going to be those 2 right there, just any lines going in the correct dimensions. And I'm just going to click and drag. I'm going to change my quantity to 2 rather than 3, and then just kind of put it in the best spot I can think of. Change my quantity to 2 instead of 3. Put it in the most accurate spot, and then press enter. And now I've got a chair with 4 legs. It took me like 2 seconds compared to probably would have taken me a couple minutes to draw out everything. Okay. So now we've got our basic chair here. To give it a different appearance, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight everything here, and then we're going to right click on a surface, and we're going to go to physical material. And it takes a second to pop up. And then under the materials library, you will see there's a bunch of different folders for different types of materials. I want mine to be made out of leather. So that's under the fabric folder here. So I'm going to do leather, weathered. And just click and drag it over to your chair, and that will give your chair an appearance. And that is how we make a basic chair in CAD. And again, if you want to take any different design decisions, you are absolutely free to do so. This is just the first thing that came into my head. I'm not a very good artist, so this is kind of the best chair I can make. But if you want to spend a bit more time making something more interesting, I would absolutely encourage you to do that. So we're going to go ahead and save that. I already have a file called chair, so I'm just going to call it chair1 and then save. And there we go. And that's going to be it.